Time after time, I was pressured to ignore or dismiss expert and scientific recommendations. I was pressured to let politics and cronyism drive decisions over the opinions of the best scientists we have in government. And ultimately, I was removed from my position.
That was Dr. Rick Bright on a call with reporters today after he filed a whistleblower complaint saying he was demoted from his job as a top-level vaccine expert in the U.S. government. He says he was demoted specifically for resisting, on scientific grounds, the administration's campaign to use an unproven drug as a treatment for coronavirus.
Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight.
Well, again, good evening, America. And we continue with our breaking Q News story at Health and Human Services about the whistleblower complaint that has been filed against the administration. The ousted HHS official files a whistleblower complaint on the coronavirus response. Dr. Rick Bright's complaint says Health and Human Services leadership was slow to react and pushed contracts based on political connections. A top Health and Human Services official who says he was shoved out of a key coronavirus response job for pushing back on efforts to fund potentially dangerous drugs promoted by those with political connections. That was the filing of the whistleblower complaint yesterday, charging an abuse of authority or gross mismanagement at the agency.
In his complaint, Dr. Rick Bright, who until last month was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response and Director of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA, described a chaotic response to the virus at the Department of Health and Human Services. The chaos was fueled largely by pressure from HHS leadership to ignore scientific merit and expert recommendations and instead to award lucrative contracts based on political connections and cronyism, the complaint says.
Bright filed the complaint, which seeks reinstatement at BARDA, Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, with the Office of Special Counsel. After the complaint was filed, Bright's lawyers said he had agreed to testify before the House Committee on May 14th. The complaint says, quote, unlike Secretary Azar, Dr. Bright and other public health officials were fully aware of the emerging threat of COVID-19 by early January 2020. While he and his staff pushed for genetic sequencing and other information about the virus, the complaint says he, quote, initially encountered indifference, which then developed into hostility from the Department of Health and Human Services leadership, including Secretary Azar, as Dr. Bright and his staff raised concerns about the virus and the urgent need to act.
These are explosive charges because they include the allegations that America will face a shortage of needles and syringes. Dr. Bright's whistleblower complaint may be the most important of the pandemic crisis, proving that the Trump administration was warned of coronavirus in early January and ignored major effects for more than 2 months. Now, the issues of the doctor's whistleblower complaint. What do we think about what has happened here?
Honestly, this story almost feels negligible to me because it sounds like every other story we've heard about Trump and his lack of response to coronavirus. Sure, the actual details of this are terrifying, and when you listen to the story and hear the words about how this is different, it could be traumatizing, and it will be to the people that this directly affects. But this is just another example, and I don't mean just, but unfortunately, this is another example of just how little our president has done to help and actually how much he has done to harm.
It's hard to say because I'm trying to see both sides of the story. On one hand, yeah, I'm hearing that there's danger and on the other hand, I'm hearing we're fine. Miracles are going to happen. We're going to be protected. We're America. We've got this.
Pray to Jesus.
Yeah.
Much is coming because he is going to be testifying before Congress next week, and we are likely going to hear the whistleblower complaint summary of the report with 78 pages. We are going to hear lots and lots of details. Wow. The most significant is that as early as January 8th, there was a complete HHS briefing in terms of the effects of coronavirus, and that's all going to come out next week. So again, good evening, America. As we said, it's Wednesday, May 6th. It's 7 p.m., and we are queuing up the news tonight on Q News Tonight. We are live, so anything can happen. Tonight, we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBT community. We invite you to make sure you stay tuned because we're going to bring you several amazing good news stories, even despite the coronavirus pandemic. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-guest anchor, Misty Eyes.
I'm super excited about a little Dunkin' Donuts segment. Stay tuned.
And anchor Napoleon Plays.
Oh my God, I really love that segment too. Can't wait to hear how it involves a drone and how a little kid might be very happy about that. It's not me.
Let's cue up the news.
Q News Tonight is part of the Happening Out television network. We are the world's most popular digital LGBTQ news and entertainment channel.
While other LGBTQ media has stopped publishing, limited their internet and web traffic, or ceased their video entertainment and news during this pandemic, we have actually doubled down on our commitment to our LGBTQ community.
Our website, It's Happening Out, is now Florida's largest daily traffic rank of any LGBTQ media, pride organization, gay business, or gay organization by a factor of more than 100 times greater. In fact, as of today, May 6th, our website has grown in Alexa daily web traffic ranking to the number 11,834 website in America. Remember, that's out of 900 million websites. We're committed to you, and we thank you for your support.
As you know, we are Q News Tonight, the world's only live, daily LGBTQ evening news, with more than 100,000 YouTube viewers a week.
We are also part of the most popular live gay TV show in the world. Every Wednesday night at 8 p.m., it's called It's Happening Out. It's a talk show like television's The View with a whole lot of gay people. With, last week, more than 500,000 watched in Facebook television.
We're also Happening.Fun, South Florida's most popular live entertainment show for concerts, festivals, parties, and things to fun, with more than 20,000 Facebook viewers a week.
And our LGBTQ television network supports the live broadcast of Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday Church Service, the world's most popular LGBTQ queer religious broadcast.
Everyone here at Happening Out Television Network wondered if the LGBT community would continue to support gay media during the pandemic crisis. We found out today in April 2020's results for Happening Out, it was a thunderous roar.
More than 514,000 watched our LGBTQ shows on YouTube TV, and more than 1,719,000 watched our LGBTQ shows on Facebook TV.
Combined with one of the most visits of any LGBTQ website in the world, we are now the #1 LGBTQ media platform on the planet, touching more of our LGBTQ community than anyone else. Thank you so much for your growing support.
So let's catch up on the news this evening surrounding COVID-19 with our Quarantine Quickies. The first story that we're reporting on tonight is reporting on coronavirus facts. Quarantine Quickies. First, we begin with the number of cases. Tonight, we report in LGBTQ. In the world, using the 7% percentage of our population, LGBTQ world cases is now over 261,000, and in the LGBTQ community in the United States, more than 86,000. Worldwide, 3.7 million, and in the United States, 1.2 million. Remember, the USA population is only 4.7% of the world's population, and now we represent 33.2% of the world's cases, which is a higher percentage today. We continue with coronavirus quickies in reporting the number of deaths. The number of deaths in the world, in the LGBT community in the United States, is more than 5,000, worldwide 258,000, and in the United States, 72,000 deaths now reported. Again, remember, the USA is 4.4% of the world's population, and now 28% of the world's deaths. That percentage is also higher today. We continue in reporting the number of tests. Remember, President Trump and Vice President Pence have had a lot to say about testing, a lot of promises. Watch this.
Importantly, anybody right now and yesterday, anybody that needs a test gets a test. They're there. They have the tests. And the tests are beautiful. Anybody that needs a test gets a test.
So when you said 4 million tests 7 weeks ago, you were just talking about tests being sent out, not actually being completed? I'm a little confused.
John, I think they're precisely correct that in my first week on this job, we were informed that HHS, I believe IDT was the vendor, Admiral Giroir, that had distributed 1 million, was distributing another 4 million, and we believe they did. But again, those were tests that, frankly, but for the president's leadership, we'd still be waiting on those tests to be done in many cases.
In testing, we report tonight that America has tested 7,700,000 tests taken in the United States. It sounds like a large number, but it really isn't. Remember, there's 328 million Americans, which means we've only tested, in the first 4 months of pandemic, only 2.3% of the population. Medical officials recommend that 10% of the population should be tested before any reopening. And in relates to testing, we report on the state's Hall of Fame. These are the 3 best states in total testing as of today. Our Hall of Fame states are number 3, Massachusetts, where they've tested 4.9% of the population, number 2, New York, and little number 1, Rhode Island, is continuing to be at the top of our Hall of Fame states. Then we report on the Hall of Shame. LGBTQ America, we hope you don't live in one of these states, because we call this Q News Tonight's Testing Hall of Shame. These are the worst testing states in America. Number 5 is Ohio at only 1.38%. Then number 4 is Kansas. Number 3 is Kentucky. Number 2 is Arizona. And if you're a follower of Q News Tonight, you know what I'm getting ready to say. Poor Puerto Rico, which is continuing to only test 0.38% of its population.
Quarantine quickies. Trump says he's not bailing out blue states because it would be unfair. Governor Cuomo responds. We have a little video for you. Watch this.
Blue state coronavirus bailouts are unfair to Republicans. Bailouts. This is the topic of whether or not the federal government should provide aid to state governments. And it's been a discussion for weeks. The federal government has passed legislation in the past that helped airlines, helped small businesses, helped hotels. Great, great. They haven't provided any aid to state and local governments. Well, why is that important? It's the state and local governments that fund police, fire, education, teachers, healthcare workers. If you starve the states, how do you expect the states to be able to fund this entire reopening plan?
President Donald Trump says it would be unfair to Republicans if Congress passes coronavirus bailouts for blue states because, he said, the states that would benefit are run by Democrats. Quote, I think Congress is inclined to do a lot of things, but I don't think they're inclined to do bailouts.
A bailout is different than, he continues in the quote, reimbursing for the plague. Trump told the New York Post. The president continued, it's not fair to the Republicans because all the states that need help, they're run by the Democrats in every case. Florida is doing phenomenal.
The quote continues, Texas is doing phenomenal. The Midwest is, fantastic. Very little debt. The president named, specifically, California, Illinois, and New York as states that are run by Democratic governors and are in tremendous debt. Because, he said, they, quote, have been mismanaged over a long period of time.
Last I checked, I thought he was the president of the entire United States, not just the president of the blue states. Shouldn't his responsibility to help everyone?
It's proof positive. It was a rare moment where his politics actually gets in front of the medical death going on from COVID. He's more concerned about the politics of red and blue states than he is about COVID death.
Well, that's definitely true. You can't justify it in terms of the economy. I mean, Governor Cuomo has gone very well on record to say, if you don't want to bail out New York, fine. Give us back the $116 billion that we contributed in just the last 5 years that we added and didn't take back. And that makes complete sense. If you want to do math, then just do math. But he doesn't want to do math, and I bet he couldn't do it on a basic level anyway.
It's queuing up quarantine quickies. MLK's niece, an avid Trump supporter, says New York was hit hard by COVID-19 because it is the home of abortion. Alveda King, the right-wing niece of renowned civil rights leader Martin Luther King, recently said that she believes New York has become the epicenter of the U.S. coronavirus epidemic because it's, quote, the home of abortion. Presumably, according to her, God is punishing New York for not forcing more women to give birth against their will. King made her comment on Wednesday night's web hangout promoting The Return, a September 26 religious right pre-election pro-Trump rally in Washington, D.C. that King plans on attending.
As the conversation turned to New York and why it's been hit so hard by COVID-19, King reminded listeners that Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was from New York. Quote, she was the founder of all this atrocity, King said, implying that Sanger single-handedly created or expanded abortion in the U.S., which she didn't. King then compared Sanger to Baphomet and Moloch, two ancient evil deities who demanded child sacrifices.
Declaring that each successive generation of Christians will, quote, have to rise up without being afraid to come against the spilling of blood of innocents right here in our own nation. King then connected New York's coronavirus epidemic to its abortion access. Not surprising, King is also famously anti-LGBT.
Can you imagine if Martin Luther King was alive today, what his reaction to his niece's words, her hateful rhetoric, would be? I bet he would absolutely be
That's
shocked.
exactly the point. Can you imagine her not being disowned by her entire family? It's kind of like that child. I mean, she's a grown woman, it looks like anyway, maybe not mentally, but she seems to be a grown woman, and yet she wants to rebel against her entire family legacy. And it's a very strong legacy for human rights. I don't know who wants to go against the grain and fight their parents and be that much of a rebel, but she's so against human rights, whatever the case may be, that she is completely destroying all of the positive things that has been built in her name.
If you are new to watching this show, and if you don't know who I am, my name's Misty. I'm an evangelical Christian woman, and my father was a minister growing up. And as a little young Christian, I've seen many sides of the church. And one of the things that Christians do the most is, you're going to hell, you're going to hell, you're a sinner. But in reality, I can call you all fat. You're fat, you're fat. But that doesn't make me automatically skinny.
Did you call me fat?
Yeah, you are.
All right.
Wow.
Although I have pictures. Quarantine quickies. Sean Hannity scolds, sorry. I've known Al for a long time.
Wow.
Quarantine quickies.
I love this segment.
Sean Hannity scolds Michigan protesters over show of force. That's right. Sean Hannity scolded armed protesters in Michigan for bringing long guns to demonstrations against stay-at-home orders meant to curb the spread of the coronavirus, with the Fox News host warning that, quote, show of force is dangerous and puts our people at risk. I'm the #1 supporter on radio and television that I know of the First Amendment and the Second Amendment.
He continues that no one is a bigger defender of the Second Amendment than yours truly, Hannity said on Monday night's show. He continued by saying everyone has the right to protest, protect themselves, and try to get the country open, but continued, while showing footage of the protest, he said, this with the militia. Look here, and these long guns. No, a show of force is dangerous.
The quote continues, that puts our police at risk. And by the way, your message will never be heard, whoever you people are. No one should be attempting to intimidate officials with a show of force. And God forbid something happens. Hannity, a staunch reporter of President Trump, added, quote, then they're going to go after all of us, law-abiding Second Amendment people.
Why are they calling these long guns? Is that like is that red state word for shotgun? I'm very confused by the statement.
Yeah.
Rifle.
It's a size necessity that they have to clarify, Misty.
Mine's long.
I'm happy that Hannity said it. I can't believe I've said something complimentary about something that Hannity said. We are going to talk about Q's Q&A.
Yes, tonight we bring you a mini sample of Q's Q&A on coronavirus and the LGBTQ community. Every Thursday night on Q News Tonight at 7 p.m., we have experts here to answer your questions that need answered. We invite you to join our special Facebook group to ask all of your questions. And tonight we give you an example of one of the questions a viewer has asked. And on Thursday, again, we have medical experts here to answer all of your questions.
Q's Q&A. A viewer asked this question. How long do you plan to stay socially isolated to protect yourself from COVID-19? How long are y'all going to do that?
As long as science tells me that that's the safe answer. It's not just about my life. It's about everyone else's life. I mean, yes, I could probably go out and probably be fine, and I probably wouldn't get a stroke, though that's the risk for younger people. But I have a mother who's 69 with COPD. When people go out, it's not about their health. It's about gambling with somebody else's wallet.
I'm hesitant. I mean, I don't have a correct answer for this. I will probably wait until the green lights are everywhere and then tiptoe toe in the water, then foot in the water, and before I dive in. I don't know. I'm going to take my time, I think.
I agree with that. I don't think the information is clear enough yet for me to be able to answer that question, and I need more information.
We'd like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this set in this living museum possible.
Tonight we are broadcasting from our studio set here, as Napoleon said, in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center. The museum is here in Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
We joke that we're coming from the gayest place on earth.
We have a new segment, and by new I mean we're all looking forward to it every single night, and we call it Coronavirus Good News. So let's bring you Coronavirus Good News. First responders are surprised at Winn-Dixie with free groceries. We've got a video prepared for you, but stay tuned for that at the end. First responders are healthcare professionals were surprised with free groceries at the checkout at Winn-Dixie and other supermarkets in 7 states. Southeastern Grocers, which owns a Bilo, Fresco y Mas, Harvey's Supermarket, and Winn-Dixie stores, surprised community heroes at the checkout to honor those working on the front lines. Quote, "Your groceries are on Winn-Dixie tonight. Thanks for everything you do." The healthcare workers were told, "Thanks for being there." Southeastern Grocers is dedicated to being there for the community when they needed us the most, and we believe there is no better time than now to show acts of kindness. Anthony Hucker, CEO of Southeastern Grocers, wrote in a statement, "The entire LGBTQ community salutes our healthcare workers and Southeastern Grocers." And that makes this Q News Tonight's Coronavirus Good News.
Ma'am, your groceries are on Winn-Dixie. Thanks for everything you do.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Oh, God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks for everything you do. Ma'am, your groceries are on Winn-Dixie tonight. Thanks for everything you do.
Oh, my God. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Whereabouts do you work, sir?
Sir?
Whereabouts do you work?
I'm the lead firearms and tactics instructor.
Oh, you are?
Yes, sir.
So,
Like I teach all the active shooter, all the guys.
you do?
Stuff like that.
Just wanted to say groceries are on Winn-Dixie tonight. Thanks for everything you do.
You shooting me?
I'm not.
Coronavirus good news. Man delivers donuts to grandchildren with a drone. Kevin Procopio missed playing with his grandchildren. Since the COVID-19 quarantine required that they all stay in isolation, he came up with a fun way to connect with them. 1/3 of a mile down the road in Saugus, Massachusetts, the family was experiencing extreme cabin fever until they got a phone call with directions for everyone to go out onto their deck. The 3 boys, all under 5 years old, were super excited. The oldest child, Oren, ran out and anxiously waited. And then in came a drone carrying a box of Munchkin's Dunkin' Donut holes, delivered right into Oren's arms. The special delivery from Papa Kevin thrilled the kids and brightened the spirits of the adults who were happy for the diversion. Pandemic, drones, and Dunkin' Donuts makes this Q News Tonight coronavirus good news. Watch this.
We end tonight's broadcast at Q News Tonight with what we call the Big Finish. It is short story mentions of LGBTQ news or news with a gay perspective. So here we go, Q News Tonight's The Big Finish. The Big Finish. Justice Ginsburg is admitted to the hospital with infection.
I'm not going to go all conspiracy theory here. Not on air. But I think we need to pull up Princess Amidala. Let's get a duplicate Ginsburg to sit in for her. What are you busy doing, Kate McKinnon? Our country needs you. Impersonate for your life. Life.
Wow. The inner drag queen just came out of Napoleon just now.
My goodness.
It's an outer drag queen all the time.
By the way, when I first heard this, I panicked. I thought she might have COVID-19. So I checked. It's just a gallstone. But if you don't know who she is, please go watch On the Basis of Sex. And one of my favorite scenes in this movie is when the Harvard professor tried to deny her entry, saying, wait, if I give you a seat, it's going to take a seat from a man. And yet we're talking today of trans women taking seats from cis women.
Calm down, Napoleon. It's just an infection. There's no need to overreact or overact. But just in case, I say we need to go out and get a pint of Betty White's blood and get the Queen in on a video call to give us a secret of eternal life in recommendation to Justice Ginsburg, because she cannot die this year.
No.
RBG forever.
We cue up the Big Finish. No more shaming on Grindr. Happy International No Diet Day.
The word diet is ugly. It implies a short frame of time to change many people. It really should mean a consistency in how we eat, the regularity of our intake. Also, I've broken my diet, I've discussed that. I'm a gay boy without abs anymore. Maybe that's nature's way of keeping me isolated and not going out and hooking up on Grindr. I would rather be fat in the case of food shortage than have abs anyway. So you know what, nature? Thank you.
I have a feeling, abs or not, as soon as the green light hits, you're going out anyway. But on this International No Diet Day, girls and gay men across the country are lost. They don't know what to do now.
Did you call me fat?
It was figurative. I wasn't actually pointing. I was trying
to... back to the beginning of the
Oh, Jesus. God.
I am a fierce advocate of healthy living. For those of you unaware of what Misty is talking about, I used to weigh 500 pounds, and I was dying. That being said, this day is more important this year than ever before because we're all going through this pandemic together. If that means treating yourself for that day, then do it. Mental health is health too, after all. LGBTQ community, I say this with love and Misty. Stop being such a picky bitch.
There we go.
Wow, sounds like Al's taking us out for ice cream after this.
The big finish. In coronavirus pandemic, happy National Nurses Day.
And as was made famous by the Animaniacs, hello, nurse! To you 90s kids out there, you might think you know which of us here at the table, Al, Misty, and myself, is each Animaniac. We have Yakko, Wacko, and Dot. You know, Yakko likes to talk, and Wacko's wacky, and Dot is cute. So of course you would think I'm Dot. But the reality is, while Al is Yakko, and you know, he might think that, the person that wears the pants here at this table is Misty. And so therefore I've got to say, I am the wacky one. Yeah, Al, you're kind of cute when you try. And Misty, you're the one in charge here. I'll keep it at that.
You've completely sidetracked everything I was thinking. By the way, nurses have always ruled the medical world. Nurses will do most things that doctors walk in and say, yep, good job, and sign off and do a little signature and leave.
Doctors are pussies.
They are. But this year, nurses have been put in the forefront. And now, thankfully, America has been giving them the respect that they've always deserved.
My mother was a nurse and was the most important person of my entire life. This weekend is also Mother's Day, and I can't think of a better tribute to a woman who did so much for me than to be able to honor all of the nurses who are currently sacrificing so much for our collective safety. They have never been so much in the forefront. All I ask is that we remember the nurses sacrifice so much to help people even when there isn't a pandemic, when this ends, and to keep them in our minds when our own lives go back to normalcy, because for many of them, their struggle is daily. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of the nurses of the world who chose to care. The big finish. No Context Wednesday. Here we go. I was 12 when my dad told me about the birds and the murder hornets. I didn't have sex until I was 34.
What Dad didn't tell you was that in 2020, murder hornets are very much real. Sex is not. I think this analogy works for gays, though. The birds are like the talkers on Grindr, the ones floating out there like the little princesses that call them. And then there's the hornets, the ones that go at you and are one and done. They'll eat your head off. They get in your pants and in your door and in your body, and then they leave.
Wait, what are we talking about?
I don't know anymore.
I think he's talking about rough trade back to Grindr. By the way, what the actual fuck? Attention 2020. Can we focus on one tragedy at a time?
Oh, plagues.
You know, it's funny, America, because with how many times Napoleon Plays requested this story about these damn murder hornets this week,
True.
I was starting to grow concerned that a new fetish had awakened when seeing those elongated stingers that Napoleon seemed so fascinated over. I am grateful to report it appears, as usual, he was just being a nerd. The big finish. Happy 59th birthday to George Clooney.
I'm thinking about how that would work. I'm sure there's people that inject in a way that could be interesting as a fetish. What are we talking about? George Clooney. Interesting fact. 1 year ago today, George Clooney was calling for a sustained commercial boycott after Brunei put a moratorium on the death penalty for gay sex. Today, I'm waiting for him to star alongside Brad Pitt on SNL as Mayor of LA, Eric Garcetti. That would be quite a fascinating thing to see, and I think that he deserves it.
Yes, George Clooney, the original baby daddy. Happy birthday. And I was also going to talk about Brunei hotels and his boycott, and he's an advocate and an ally for our community, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
I love how the murder hornet stinger completely discombobulates Napoleon Plays. I think that's fascinating.
We're talking about injections, right?
Our supposed straight writer of this show, Chris Swarner, confessed on It's Happening Out last month that George Clooney has always been his gay crush. And for a straight guy, Chris has been pretty good and having damn good taste. Happy birthday, Mr. Clooney. The big finish. On this day in 1954, Roger Bannister of the UK becomes the first person to run a 4-minute mile, recorded at 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds at Iffley Road in Oxford.
I think it's funny that this story was in the same opposite side of the diet conversation we were having earlier. The same one where Misty called Elle fat, with pictures apparently. But what I'm interested in, we're just going to keep bringing that up.
Trigger.
Hey, we're just going to throw it back. I want to see whatever you did. What's interesting to me is that I ran cross country in high school, and I heard about this very long ago. My coach, Mr. Johnstone, would always use this as a motivator, how you can improve yourself, and it's all about what you think is going to happen, and pain is weakness, leaving the body, and yada yada. But really, he didn't understand that what motivated me was, even as the captain, always coming in second, because I always wanted to be behind Luke.
Roger Bannister did the 4-minute mile at 25 years old. When I was 25, I was trying to get into 4-minute drag. I was trying to take the 2-hour drag makeup down to as fast as possible. That's what I was working on when I was 25.
You know, there seems to be a theme tonight that I'm fat. Let's return to that for a moment. Years ago, when I first met Misty, couldn't have imagined walking a mile, much less in doing it in anywhere near 4 minutes. Today, in a morning walk and then a late morning walk with Napoleon, I have walked 9 miles today. So Roger Bannister is kind of a hero for me today. Not that I could ever do a 4-minute mile, but the time is really not so important. It's been eclipsed thousands of times by thousands of people. It only proves that Roger Bannister was the first to make commitment and to be successful at it. And for that, he is cheered forever. That is today's news.
That's right. We thank you for the LGBTQ community. And remember that we have our own evening show every day on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
It's important to you, America, and it's important at Q News tonight. But you must help us. Make sure you click to subscribe on YouTube and share the news of It's Happening Out and Q News Tonight. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. This is the only source of live LGBT news in the world. Your community needs your support.
You are not alone.
We will get through this crisis.
We are here with you, and this is Q News Tonight. So thank you for joining us. I'm Al Ferguson, and on behalf of my anchor partners, Misty Eyes and Napoleon Plays, we'll see you tomorrow night. And remember, Q's Q&A tomorrow night at 7 p.m.